Serafina lowered her head, her knuckles turning white as she gripped the tray of steaming coffee. The VIP elevator of the velour tower shone brightly, reflecting the image of a girl in an oversized thrift store suit and scuffed flats. She didn't dare look up, not out of fear, but to hide the sharp, calculating intelligence in her eyes as she memorized the security codes on the executive panel. The elevator doors slid open with a soft, intimidating ding. Vanessa Vane stepped out of the glass-walled conference room, the click of her stilettos against the marble floor sounding like hammer strikes. She stopped directly in front of Serafina, her eyes scanning the intern from head to toe, as if looking at a pile of trash blocking her path. Vanessa tilted her chin toward the coffee tray. 5 minutes. It took you 15 minutes just to buy 3 lattes. Serafina. At velour. Time is money. And you are burning mine. Serafina whispered, forcing a tremble into her voice. I apologize. Director Vane. The staff elevator was broken. I had to take the stairs. Vanessa didn't let her finish. With a casual flick of her wrist, her arm heavy with gold bangles swung out and struck the tray in Serafina's hands. Crash. Scalding brown liquid exploded over Serafina's white shirt and splashed across the pristine floor. Serafina stifled a gasp of pain as the heat seared her skin, but she bit her lip and stood her ground. Vanessa smirked, pulling a tissue to wipe a single drop of coffee from her manicured red nail. Oops. My hand slipped. But it was probably cold anyway. Were you planning to feed me sewage? Clean it up. With your hands. Serafina dropped to her knees. As the cold, sticky liquid soaked into her clothes, a fire of rage burned in her chest. She reminded herself, not yet. I need the evidence of her leaking the designs first. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors of the CEO's office flew open. Julian Thorne stepped out. His bespoke black suit hugged his tall, imposing frame, radiating an aura of authority that sucked the air out of the room. He saw the chaos and intern on her knees and Vanessa playing the victim. Julian frowned, his voice low and commanding. What is happening here? Since when did my creative department turn into a marketplace? Vanessa's face instantly transformed into a mask of distress. She pointed a shaking finger at Serafina. Julian. I mean, Mr. Thorne. It's this intern. I simply asked about her progress, and she threw the coffee tray at me in a rage. Look at my shoes, they're ruined. Julian stepped closer, his icy gaze boring into the top of Serafina's head. He despised unprofessionalism and violence in the workplace above all else. Julian ordered, his voice void of emotion. Look at me. Serafina slowly raised her head. Behind her thick, ugly glasses, she lowered her eyelids to avoid his piercing stare. She knew Julian. They had met at galas years ago, but 15 years had passed. There was no way he would recognize the neighbor's daughter in this pathetic state. Julian looked at her with unmasked disgust. Do you have nothing to say for yourself? Serafina pursed her lips, her voice quiet but steady. I didn't throw it. It was an accident. Julian scoffed, a cold sound that didn't reach his eyes. An accident. You poor people always have so many accidents to cover up your incompetence. Vanessa is a top creative director. She has no reason to frame a nameless intern. Deduct the cost of her shoes from your salary. And clean this mess up in 5 minutes. If I see a single stain, you're fired." He turned and walked away without a backward glance, leaving Serafina kneeling in a puddle of coffee while Vanessa giggled triumphantly behind him. 3 days later, the tension at Velour was palpable. Today was the unveiling of the Phoenix the Vedette dress for Paris Fashion Week. Valued at $2 million due to the real diamonds sewn into the bodice, Serafina was assigned to guard the dressing room while Vanessa greeted the press. The room was freezing, lit only by a spotlight on the red masterpiece. Serafina stood in the corner, secretly checking the encrypted files she had extracted from Vanessa's computer the night before. Just a little more, she thought, and this nest of vipers will burn. Suddenly, the building's fire alarm screamed to life. The ear-splitting noise made Serafina jump. The PA system blared urgently. Fire reported on the 20th floor. Evacuate immediately. Serafina frowned. The 20th floor was storage. Nowhere near the VIP offices on level 45. But protocol was protocol. She glanced at the dress one last time, locked the door securely, and ran for the emergency exit. 15 minutes later, after the alarm was declared false, the crowd returned. Julian led the entourage of investors into the showroom, with Vanessa clinging to his side, chattering excitedly about her masterpiece. Vanessa pushed the double doors open. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is the heart of the collection. Her words choked in her throat. A blood-curdling scream tore through the dignified atmosphere. "Oh my God, what is this?" All eyes turned to the podium. The magnificent Phoenix was now a pile of shredded red rags. The diamonds had been pried off, the silk slashed to ribbons, and red paint looking disturbingly like blood was splattered everywhere. Julian froze. His face went dark, his jaw clenching until a vein pulsed in his temple. He whipped around, a murderous glare sweeping over the trembling staff. Julian roared. "Who did this? Who was the last person in this room?" Vanessa immediately lunged forward, pointing a manicured finger straight at Serafina at the back of the group. "It was her I gave her the key, Serafina. You hated me because of the coffee incident, so you destroyed the dress. Didn't you?" Serafina's eyes widened. She knew Vanessa was vile, but destroying company assets to frame her was a new low. "It wasn't me. When the alarm went off, I locked the door." Vanessa cut her off, reaching into Serafina's blazer pocket and pulling something out. It was a box cutter, smeared with red fabric fibers. Vanessa shrieked, holding the blade up to Julian. "The evidence is right here. Do you deny it now? This knife was in your pocket." Julian stalked over to Serafina. He was so close she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the scent of danger. He snatched the knife, looked at it, then at her. Julian spoke, his voice sounding like thunder before a storm. "Do you know how much this dress is worth? It is worth more than your entire meaningless life." Serafina looked him dead in the eye, dropping her submissive act. "I didn't do it. Someone staged the fire alarm to break in. You are the CEO. You should check the cameras instead of accusing staff based on hearsay." Cameras. Vanessa laughed. A shrill, acidic sound. What a coincidence. The camera system on this floor went down for maintenance this morning. You calculated this perfectly. You trash. Julian threw the knife to the floor with a deafening clang. "Enough. I don't want to hear another lie." He turned to the head of security. Lock her in the conference room. Call the police. I want her to rot in prison for property destruction. And before the police get here... Julian looked at Serafina with cruel finality. You will pay for this. If you don't have $2 million, prepare to sell your life in prison. Serafina straightened her back, despite the dozens of eyes looking at her with contempt. She watched Vanessa smirking behind Julian's shoulder. Her hand inside her pocket brushed against the cold metal of the most powerful card in the world, the Sterling Infinity card. She thought to herself, fine. Julian. You want to play high stakes. I'll show you what expensive really means. The soundproof glass door of the meeting room opened. Julian walked in, loosening his tie. Exhaustion etched on his handsome but cold face. Vanessa followed close on his heels, clutching a tablet to calculate damages, her eyes gleaming with undisguised malice. Julian slammed a document onto the polished wooden table in front of Serafina. The police will be here in 10 minutes. This is your last chance. Sign the debt acknowledgement. $2 million plus interest. You will be paying this off for the rest of your life. Or, tell me who hired you to sabotage the launch. Serafina sat there, stripped of her usual fear. She took off her thick glasses, revealing eyes that were sharp and fierce. She leaned back in the chair, crossing her legs, a posture of dominance that completely contradicted her intern status. Serafina spoke, her voice calm enough to send chills down a spine. 2 million pocket change. I will settle the payment right now. On one condition, you fire Vanessa Vane immediately. Vanessa burst out laughing, the sound echoing off the walls. Are you insane? The village girl is so scared she's lost her mind. Julian. $2 million. How will you pay with your kidney? Serafina didn't even glance at Vanessa. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a card. It was matte black, edged in pure platinum, with the crest of the Sterling family embossed in gold in the center. She held the card between 2 fingers and flicked it across the table. It spun perfectly and stopped right in front of Julian. Serafina smirked. Swipe it. No pin required. Julian frowned and picked up the card. It was heavy. Cold, solid metal. Sterling Infinity. The name made his heart skip a beat. This was a legendary card. Rumor had it only 5 people in the world possessed one. Vanessa snatched the card from Julian's hand, flipping it over and sneering. Oh my god. Nice. Prop Julian. Look at this. It doesn't even have an EMV chip like normal cards. You probably bought this online to trick people. You plan to pay $2 million with a piece of scrap metal. Julian stared at Serafina, doubt warring with reason in his mind. Logic told him a bus-riding intern couldn't have this. But her aura... It had shifted completely. Julian gritted his teeth. Serafina, forging financial instruments is a felony. You not only destroyed property, now you're attempting fraud. Where did you steal this? Serafina stood up, planting both hands on the table and leaning into Julian's face. Steal? Who on earth do you think would dare let me steal what belongs to my bloodline? I'm warning you. Julian. If you let the police put handcuffs on me, Velour will cease to exist by tomorrow morning. Vanessa screamed, cutting through Julian's hesitation. Stop listening to her threats, security. The police are here. Arrest this scammer. The wail of police sirens rose from the street below, signaling the death knell of Serafina's patience. 2 police officers entered the room, followed by the building security director. Vanessa immediately pointed at Serafina, rattling off accusations. The officer pulled out a pair of handcuffs and approached Serafina. Ms. Serafina, you are under arrest for suspicion of felony property damage and attempted fraud. Cooperate, or we will use force. Julian stood by the window, arms crossed, not wanting to watch, but a strange unease churned in his gut. He turned just as he heard the cold click of metal. The handcuffs locked tight around Serafina's slender wrists. Serafina did not resist. She simply looked up at the security camera in the corner, the one Vanessa claimed was under maintenance. She knew her private security had hacked the system hours ago and was watching Liz watching. Serafina spoke clearly. Not to the police, but to the air. Activate Protocol Omega. By the block. The officer looked confused. What are you babbling about? Let's go. They marched her out of the conference room, down the long hallway, past hundreds of whispering, pointing employees. Vanessa followed, filming with her phone, a twisted smile of victory plastered on her face. But as they stepped into the grand lobby on the ground floor, the ground beneath them began to vibrate. Whoop. 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 A deafening roar from outside drowned out the gossip. The tempered glass windows of the velour tower rattled in their frames. Everyone rushed to the windows and froze. The sky outside darkened as 3 jet-black helicopters, emblazoned with the golden Sterling Global logo, descended. They hovered menacingly just above the street, the wind from their rotors tearing advertising banners from the lampposts. Simultaneously, a convoy of 10 armored Cadillac Escalades screeched to a halt, blocking every exit of the building. Dozens of men in black suits and earpieces poured out of the vehicles with military precision. They carried no visible weapons, but their sheer presence forced the police officer holding Serafina to step back instinctively. An elderly man with silver hair, dressed in a tuxedo tailcoat like a royal butler, stepped out of the lead vehicle. He carried a crocodile leather briefcase and walked with a dignity that made the crowd part like the Red Sea. Vanessa's jaw dropped, her phone clattering to the floor. What? What the hell is this, terrorists? Julian ran out of the elevator, stunned by the chaotic scene. He recognized the silver-haired man. It was Sir Arthur, the head butler of the Sterling family. A man even the president treated with respect. Sir Arthur walked straight to the police officer, his eyes sharp as razors. He held up a hand. A lawyer beside him immediately thrust a document stamped with a red seal into the officer's face. Arthur spoke, his voice booming. Release her. Immediately. The officer stammered. But she is a suspect. She is not a suspect, Arthur interrupted. He turned to Serafina and slowly, deliberately, bowed 90 degrees at the waist, a gesture of supreme reverence. The lobby went deathly silent. Miss Serafina, I am late. Please punish me as you see fit, Arthur said, his voice trembling with apology. The helicopter is ready, and the Sterling legal team is currently filing a lawsuit against Velour for unlawful imprisonment and defamation of the sole heiress. Julian felt the blood drain from his face. His ears rang. Miss Serafina, the Sterling heiress, the clumsy intern, the girl he had just ordered to be thrown in jail. was the actual owner of the parent company that kept Velour alive. Serafina raised her handcuffed hands and looked at Julian with eyes cold enough to freeze hell. "Julian Thorne," she said softly, her voice hitting him like a physical blow. "You just fired your boss." The police chief, sweating profusely, fumbled with the key to the handcuffs. The click echoed in the silent lobby like a gunshot. The metal cuffs fell to the marble floor, clattering at Serafina's feet. Arthur immediately stepped forward, pulling a pristine white silk handkerchief from his breast pocket. He gently wiped the red marks on Serafina's wrists. As if cleaning dust from a priceless artifact, Arthur spoke, low but loud enough for Julian to hear. "An absolute disgrazie." The last time a sterling was treated this way was in the 19th century, and the man responsible was erased from history. Serafina rubbed her wrist. Her gaze swept over the gaping employees before landing on Julian, the most powerful man at Velour, who now looked like a crumbling statue. Julian stammered, his throat dry. "Serafina." "Sterling, it's impossible. Your HR file. You were a student from the countryside. Parent deceased." Serafina laughed softly and stepped closer. Her walk was no longer the shuffle of an intern. It was the stride of a monarch ascending the throne. "That is what you wanted to see." "Julian," she replied, her tone flat. "You were too busy looking down from your pedestal to notice the truth on the ground. Sterling Global acquired 51% of Velour 6 months ago. I wasn't sent here to learn. I was sent to decide if this rotting company was worth saving, or if I should dissolve it." She turned to Vanessa, who stood frozen, her face pale as a corpse, but her eyes still wild with denial. Vanessa shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Arthur. "Lies. It's all lies. These are actors she hired. Right, the helicopters are rentals. Don't let her fool you. Julian. She's acting to get out of paying for the dress." Arthur didn't dignify her with a response. He simply snapped his fingers. Instantly, every giant LED advertising screen in the lobby and on the building's exterior went black. Then, the stylized golden S of Sterling Global blazed to life, followed by bold red text, "Takeover notice new acting CO, Serafina Sterling." The screens then switched to a live feed of CNN Business. The anchor spoke gravely. "Breaking news. The mysterious heiress of the Sterling Empire has just revealed her identity at Velour Fashion headquarters, sending shockwaves through the global market." Vanessa looked at the screen, then down at Serafina. Her knees gave way. She collapsed onto the floor, right next to the puddle she had spilled earlier. Julian stared at the screen, then back at Serafina. Memories of scolding her, making her fetch coffee, forcing her to work unpaid overtime, and his look of contempt when she said I didn't do it flooded his mind like a nightmare. He hadn't just insulted an employee, he had insulted his master. Julian took a step forward, his voice shaking, trying to salvage a shred of dignity. "Sarah." "Ms. Serafina." I was deceived." Vanessa's reports. Serafina raised a hand, cutting him off. She didn't look at him, she looked at Arthur. "Arthur," she commanded, her voice sharp. "Lock down the building. No one leaves, especially the board of directors. I want a board meeting right here. Right now. I'm going to show them how this intern works. She turned toward the VIP elevator, the one she had been forbidden to even look at that morning. The wall of black-clad bodyguards parted instantly. Before the doors closed, Serafina looked at Julian and Vanessa one last time. "Go to the conference room," she said. "Bring the shredded dress. We have a debt to settle. And Julian, this time, you will be the one kneeling." The heavy doors of the boardroom slammed shut, sealing the suffocating air inside. The elderly board members, who had just been fawning over Julian an hour ago, now sat in terrified silence, sweating under Serafina's gaze. She sat at the head of the table in the dragon leather chair that only her father used to occupy. Julian stood at the far end of the table, arms hanging loosely, stripped of his arrogance. Beside him, Vanessa was shaking, her mascara running in grotesque black streaks down her face. Serafina tapped her finger on the mahogany table. Tap. Tap. The sound was like a countdown. "You think I disabled the security cameras to take a nap?" Serafina asked, her voice echoing. "Arthur, play the maintenance footage for everyone to enjoy." The giant projector screen lit up. The image was crystal clear. 4 kelvins. It showed the Phoenix showroom at 10:15 a.m., the exact moment the fire alarm rang. In the video, Serafina ran out the exit. Seconds later, a figure crawled out from under a display table, a hiding spot no one had checked. It was Vanessa Vane. The room gasped. On screen, Vanessa pulled the box cutter from her pocket and maniacally slashed the $1 million dress, muttering curses. "Little brat. Dare to defy me. I'll send you to jail." After satisfying her rage, she shoved the knife into the blazer Serafina had left on a chair, then giggled psychotically. Vanessa screamed, lunging at the screen as if to tear the evidence apart. Turn it off, it's AI, it's a deep fake. That bitch faked it all." Serafina didn't blink. She signaled Arthur. The butler opened his briefcase and tossed a thick file onto the table in front of Julian. It wasn't just vandalism, Serafina stated coldly. This is her embezzlement file for the last 3 years. Vanessa sold 15 unreleased velour designs to competitors, took bribes from fabric suppliers, and embezzled 30% of the marketing budget. Total damage, $12 million. Julian picked up the file, his hands trembling as he turned the pages. The numbers, the signatures, the bank transfers. It was undeniable. He had nurtured a viper in his bosom while crushing the only person who was actually working. Julian looked up at Vanessa, his shock turning to blind fury. You did this behind my back. I gave you everything." Vanessa knew she was cornered. Suddenly, she laughed a broken, hysterical sound. She pointed at Julian. "You gave me everything. You're an idiot, Julian. You think you're so brilliant without me sucking up to clients and covering your messes. You would have lost that CEO chair years ago. You're just a puppet." The boardroom doors burst open. 2 officers, high-ranking economic crime investigators, entered, holding an arrest warrant. "Vanessa Vane," the lead officer announced. "You are under arrest for corporate sabotage, grand larceny, and industrial espionage. You have the right to remain silent." Vanessa screamed and kicked as they handcuffed her and dragged her out. Her curses echoed down the hallway until they faded. leaving a terrifying silence hovering over Julian. Julian stood alone in the center of the room. He turned to Serafina, who sat high and unreachable. Slowly, he sank to his knees. No one forced him this time. Regret and humiliation crushed his legs. Sarah. Madam Chairwoman, Julian rasped, bowing his head to the floor. I am guilty. I was blind. Please punish me. I accept any judgment. Serafina stood up, her heels clicking slowly as she approached the kneeling man. She stopped, looking down at the crown of the head of the man she had once admired as a girl, and the boss who had humiliated her for 3 months. Stand up, Julian, she said. Her voice held no anger, only the cold indifference of a business tycoon. Don't dirty my floor. Julian looked up, a flicker of hope in his eyes. You will forgive me. I promise I will dedicate the rest of my life to velour, to make amends. Serafina smirked. A cruel. Beautiful expression. Forgive Julian. This is business, not a daycare. You violated the cardinal rule of leadership. You trusted a thief and persecuted the talent. Your management capability is 0. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the glittering lights of New York City. The board has passed the motion to terminate you as CEO. Effective immediately. All your stock options are seized to cover the damages caused by your negligence. Julian swayed, looking as if he might faint. No job. No stock. He was penniless. A 10-year career turned to ash. However, Serafina's voice caught him before he hit rock bottom. I am not heartless. I know you love velour. So, I will give you a chance. Anything, Julian cried out, like a drowning man clutching a straw. I will do anything. Serafina turned and tossed her old employee ID card onto the floor in front of him, the intern badge he had sneered at. The assistant intern position is open, she said slowly. Your duties are to brew coffee, clean the sample room, and run errands for the junior designers. Probationary salary. No insurance. 6-month trial period. If you perform well, I might consider making you a full-time employee. Julian stared at the plastic card on the floor. The humiliation was worse than death. To go from a king to a servant for his own former employees. But looking into Serafina's eyes, he saw steel. He knew if he walked out that door, the Sterling family would blacklist him from the entire fashion industry. He had no choice. Julian's trembling hand reached out and picked up the card. He hung it around his neck and bowed lower than he ever had in his life. Thank you, Julian whispered, swallowing the bitter taste of tears. Thank you, Chairwoman Serafina, for your mercy. I will go make the coffee now. He turned and shuffled out of the room, his back hunched and defeated. Serafina watched him go, unmoved. She turned to Arthur, who was smiling with pride. Miss, Arthur asked quietly, do you think he will endure it? Serafina picked up a glass of red wine Arthur had just poured. She swirled the liquid, watching the light catch the deep crimson. He will endure it, she whispered. Because living in regret, forced to watch me shine every single day. That is the cruelest punishment of all." She raised her glass to the night sky. The era of Julian Thorne was over. The reign of Queen Seraphina Sterling had begun,